So it is time to continue the next installment in our watch tournament series. The price range next up is $7,000 to $8,000. So over the past couple of months, we have been narrowing down this price bucket to a single watch to determine the best watch of this price range. How we're able to do this is having you all vote on it, and then in addition to that, develop a 16 seed bracket style tournament where each matchup winner is determined by you. So we started with a larger field of watches, put them in a form, and then asked you to pick your top 10 watches from the list. Based on that percentage of the top 10 votes received, we were then able to create 16 different seeds for our tournament. So how this was ultimately broken down, for those that don't watch sports, the watch that had the highest percentage of top 10 votes gets the #1 seed, with the rest in descending order to follow. So this was undoubtedly a top-heavy field with the likes of Rolex Omega dominating as expected. In the top 16, you only had 5 brands, indicating one of the more definitive final 16s with less brand parity. Instead, we were seeing more brand-on-brand combat in this tournament. And before we look at the final 16 that made the tournament, let's also call attention to the first 2 watches that didn't make the cut. At the 17th position, we had the Grand Seiko SBGJ 271 GMT, and then at the 18th spot, you had the Tag Heuer Monaco Golf Edition. These watches just missed the cut by a few hundred votes, but just missing the cut doesn't get the job done. So now let's look at the final 16 watches to advance to the tournament. So first up on our list, the 16th seed is the Rolex Air King, receiving 27% of top 10 votes. This is the first but not the last Rolex on this list. And every Rolex presented in tournament history, and also from the original 50 watches presented here, made the cut of the final 16. That said, the Air King was definitely the closest to not making the cut of any Rolex watch thus far. For the 15th seed, we have the IWC Portugieser Automatic 40. This is the silver dial version, receiving 28.2% of top 10 votes. And despite falling short of the big 3 of the tournament, IWC did successfully take part here, and we'll have another one a little bit later on. Sorry for the spoiler. 14th seed, we have the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. This is the 39.5mm version, coming in with 28.8% of top 10 votes. This is the lowest of any sub-collection of the Seamaster thus far in tournament history in terms of seating position, although every core Seamaster that hit the field for voting has made it to the round of 16 in every tournament. Told you another IWC was coming, and it comes at the 13th seed, the IWC Pilot Chronograph on bracelet, 29.2% of top 10 votes. IWC getting 2 watches in the tournament. At the 12th seed, we have the Omega Constellation Globemaster, receiving 33.3% of top 10 votes. So this is the first model from the Constellation family to show up in tournament history. Now we look at the 11th seed. We have the Omega Seamaster 300, the Heritage Edition, not the Diver 300, the Heritage Edition on bracelet, receiving 35.9% of top 10 votes. Now the Heritage Diver, clearly not as much of a favorite compared to the Diver 300. For context, the Diver 300 was the #1 seed in its tournament, receiving 75.8% of top 10 votes. That gave it the #1 seed, where here you're getting 35.9% of top 10 votes. So a bit of surprise here. I would have expected this one to be positioned a little bit higher. We have the Rolex Explorer, the 36mm case option, receiving 36.4% of top 10 votes. At the 9th position, we have the Cartier Santos de Cartier. This is the large case version of this model, 37.7% of top 10 votes. At the 8th position, we have a Rolex Datejust 36, but I do want to specify there's different configurations available in this price range, and we made those available to vote on. This one here in the 8th position is the Oyster bracelet and the dome bezel option, receiving 38.9% of top 10 votes. Please note these configurations throughout the tournament, as that'll be an indicator of what people are exactly voting on. At the 7th position, a Grand Seiko does make the cut, an SBGJ 249, also known as the Show. This received 39.2% of top 10 votes, and despite Grand Seiko dominating in former tournaments and always having representation, this tournament was a little bit tougher for them to break through because of this window of price, until you start to see the Evolution 9 in products like the Sua and the Birch models. This is not really their sweet spot, unlike that $6,000 to $7,000 range. This is starting to get right in that that weird middle ground. That said, great representation here by a fantastic dial from the brand with the show. At the 6th position, we have the first Omega in space Speedmaster. If you notice the percentage here, 49.8%, big jump from the previous 7th position. This is the lowest of the 3 Speedmasters in this final round. I'll let you guess on what are the other ones that might appear here. At the 5th seed, we have another Rolex Datejust 36 model, but this one is the Jubilee bracelet and the dome bezel variant, receiving 50.3% of top 10 votes. Seems like the Jubilee is the preferred bracelet type by quite a big margin compared to the Oyster bracelet. So another surprise, you saw this difference between the configurations of the Datejust. Same thing here for the Explorer, the 40mm Explorer, way far ahead compared to that of the 36mm, which is somewhat of a surprise given the purist approach to the 36mm case. This one came in at 53.2% of top 10 votes, the 4th position. And to give a sense of how much separation there was between the 40mm option and the 36mm option in the voting, nearly 17% margin for the 40mm over the 36. At the 3 seed, we have the Cartier Santos de Cartier. This is the medium case option. Very strange how with Rolex, the larger case option of the Explorer wins out, but in this instance, we're seeing the smaller version of the cases win out. This comes in with 53.2% of top 10 votes, being nicely positioned at this 3 seed. This is the highest position for a Cartier thus far in tournament history. And then previous, the highest seed was a 5 seed in the 5K tournament with the Tank XL. So a big jump up here from the large model as well, 15.5% in margin over the larger case version. Now to go to the 2nd seed, we have to take a huge jump in the percentage of votes. This is the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, the Sapphire Sandwich version, black dial, receiving 77.3% of top 10 votes. That is a huge jump, no surprise. This is enough to be the #1 seed in basically every other tournament apart from the 7K tournament, where what so happened to be the #1 seed was a Speedmaster Hesalite. Not a surprise though, $7,000, $8,000 Speedmaster is a very dominant choice. And with that being said, the #1 seed is the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, the white dial version, just edging out the black dial in the initial poll that we had in the forum. 77.5% of top 10 votes going to the white dial Professional Moonwatch. This just edged out the black Sapphire Sandwich version by 0.2%, and only behind the Hesalite for the highest ever for a #1 seed in top 10 votes, when that one had 84.7% of top 10 votes. So digging in a little bit deeper to some of the statistics here around the field of 16 watches, Omega led the way with 6 watches advancing to the round of 16. Right behind them was Rolex, and then Cartier and IWC both came in with 2 watches each, and Grand Seiko comes in with a sole watch representing them in this tournament. The 1 and 2 seeds created a substantial gap, as you're noticing here, in percentage. For context, the gap from the 3 to the 2 seed in this tournament was a larger difference in percentage than the 1 to 16 seed difference in the 3K tournament. That difference in the 3K tournament between the 16 seed and the 1 seed was just 23%, whereas in the difference from the 3 to the 2 seed in this tournament was 24.1%. So wild and dominating results from 2 watches that happen to be from the same model family. Before we proceed to looking at the matchups themselves and who won out, I do want to remind you all we're getting really close to Watches and Wonders, and if you want to be understanding what is coming out, you want to subscribe to this channel, but also be signed up for our newsletter on our website. We have 8 people rolling up to Watches and Wonders this year, and that's not even including myself. We have a whole team that's there to try to cover this event better than anybody in the industry. So if you're trying to get news, new watches, hands-on, we're gonna be there. We're gonna be covering everything. We don't know what's coming out, but we're excited to do it. So if you want great photography, check out our Instagram, check out our website. We're gonna be releasing daily articles, probably in the first day, well over a dozen different articles that are gonna be coming out. And I might be even short selling that. There's gonna be so much going out on the website. In addition to that though, videos here on the channel. You're gonna wanna stay subscribed. That's gonna be hands-on with the product before almost anybody in the world. That's also going to be sit-downs with some brand executives at different parts of the show, plus a lot more that we're gonna be catching on the ground. I'm gonna be living in Switzerland for about 2 weeks for this show. So if you want to be in the loop of all the things coming out for Watches and Wonders, this is brands like Rolex, Grand Seiko, Tudor, Patek Philippe, Richemont brands like Vacheron, JLC, Panerai, Lange, a lot more happening at the show. If you want to stay in the loop, be sure to be subscribed on all fronts, website, Instagram, all the social channels, as well as here on YouTube. So let's kick things off. Round 1, matchup 1. With the 1 seed going up against the 16 seed, we have the Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch White Dial going up against the 16 seed, the Air King from Rolex. And a massive margin of victory going to the Omega Speedmaster with 84% of the vote. Tough draw for the Air King in round number 1. Now matchup number 2, we have the 2 seed going up against the 15 seed. So IWC, the Portugueser automatic 40mm silver dial at that 15 seed going up against the 2 seed, a black dial version of the Professional Moonwatch. And this margin of victory was even larger, 86% going to the Moonwatch. Now we have matchup 3, the 3 seed going up against the 14 seed, Cartier Santos de Cartier medium going up against the Seamaster Planet Ocean. And Omega is not going to be victorious this round. Easy win for Cartier, getting 70% of the vote. Matchup 4 with the Rolex Explorer 40mm, the 4 seed going up against the 13 seed IWC Pilot Chronograph on bracelet, and 74% go for the Rolex Explorer 40mm. IWC has 2 watches advance to the round of 16, but they don't advance any further from that. So they both are going home in round 1. Matchup 5, you have the Rolex Datejust 36mm, the Jubilee bracelet, and the dome bezel configuration against the Omega Constellation Globemaster. A lot of people sometimes compare Constellation versus Datejust. Who do you want to go for? I'm a big Constellation lover, but I'm also a big Datejust lover. But let's see what the people say. The people go with the 5 seed, the Datejust 36, receiving 76% of the vote here. Then matchup 6, we have the 11 seed versus the 6 seed, 2 Omegas going head to head. You have a first Omega in space Speedmaster versus the 11 seed Omega Seamaster 300 Heritage on bracelet. And for this easy win, you're going to have the 6 seed moving on with the first Omega in space, 71% of the vote. Every matchup through 6 matchups have had the winning watch receive at least 70% of the vote. Pretty wild to see this point of separation. But that is going to change in the next matchup here, much closer contested matchup. You have the 7 seed Grand Seiko SBGJ 249, the Show, and the Rolex Explorer 36mm. So I'm very surprised to see the Rolex Explorer 36mm sitting at the 10 seed to begin with, and it's actually going to be going home after the first round. We have the Show showing the door to the Rolex Explorer. 52% of the vote goes to Grand Seiko. And for our final matchup, the 2 closest seeds going up against one another, we have Rolex's Datejust 36mm Oyster bracelet and dome bezel versus the Santos de Cartier, the large model, at the 9 seed. And for this, we're looking at the 67% of the vote going to the Rolex Datejust. It moves on to the next round. One of the Cartiers advances, but the other Cartier goes home. So now we move on to round number 2, the 1 seed going up against the 8 seed. So you have the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch White Dial up against the 8 seed, the Rolex Datejust 36mm Oyster bracelet, dome bezel. So who wins? The Speedmaster moves on with 70% of the vote. Pretty easy win. And the White Dial Speedmaster takes out another Rolex in the tournament. Matchup number 2, the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch Black Sapphire version versus the Grand Seiko SBGJ 249. And the Show is not going to be able to pull this one off. The Speedmaster moves on with 74% of the vote. Grand Seiko not making the Final Four for the first time in tournament history where they appear in the round of 16. Matchup 3, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. And this showed up on Instagram. When we put up this poll, it showed up as a tie. You had to go further into the analytical data to understand what was the separation between these 2 watches. And it was less than 100 votes that separated these watches, but just by a hair. The 6 seed first Omega in space moves on upset against the Cartier Santos de Cartier, just about 100 votes separating these 2 watches. One of the closest matchups in tournament history and an upset to go along with it. And then matchup number 4 for round 2, we have the Rolex Explorer 40mm going up against the 5 seed Rolex Datejust 36. This is the Jubilee bracelet version with the dome bezel. And between these 2, decisive victory going to the Rolex Datejust 36. 58% of the vote. And with that, there is no Explorer going to be making the Final Four, not the 36 and not the 40mm. Datejust 36, Jubilee bracelet, and dome bezel moves on. So now with the Final Four, we have 3 Omega watches and then 1 single Rolex for this final round. Let's see who's going to advance. Now, the matchup number 1, we have the 1 seed Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch White Dial versus the Rolex Datejust 36mm Jubilee bracelet, dome bezel. Who wins? The Moonwatch moves on with a narrow margin of victory compared to the others at 62% of the vote going to the Moonwatch. The White Dial continues on to the championship round. And then for the second matchup for the round of 4 here, we have the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, the Black Dial Sapphire Sandwich, versus the 6th seed First Omega and Space Speedmaster. Just did a video about comparing these two watches, which one is better for most people. I argue that the Moonwatch is probably the better watch for most people out there. However, that's just my opinion. What did the people decide? And with the vote, 64% go for the Professional Moonwatch. So with that, you have Speedmaster on Speedmaster for the final round. You went through all this different tournament, you had all these different matchups, all for the 1 and the 2 seed to go up against each other. But if we're being objective about things, for most people, if you were gonna recommend a watch to your best friend, your buddy, for this amount of money, you gotta be honest, the Speedmaster would be one of those watches, if not one of the first watches, if not the first watch that you would mention. So it's not surprising that we're seeing the white dial versus the black dial. What is strange though is the white dial is the number 1 seed, black dial number 2 seed. So let's put this all to the test. We put all of these watches, we started with a field of over 50 pieces to choose from, we narrowed it down to 16, we went through a tournament, tens of thousands of votes cast throughout this tournament, and now we can only pick one winner. The number 1 seed, Professional Moonwatch, White Dial versus the 2 seed, Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch Sapphire. Make your guesses right now. I'll give you a few seconds. Who was the winner? All of this leading up to this moment, and the winner is the number 2 seed. Gets an upset in the championship round. The Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch Sapphire Sandwich Black Dial gets 57% of the vote, so not even that close. We had a 1 and 2 seed in the final round. You had 0.2% separating them in the original form cast, but when you look at the head-to-head matchup, 57% of the vote going to the Black Dial version. And with that, we have determined the best watch from $7,000 to $8,000 according to all of you. There were definitely some surprises throughout this tournament. I don't think I'm that surprised by the winner. The 1 seed losing in the final round and seeing that point of separation between the Black Dial versus the White Dial, that was a bit surprising compared to how things were shaking out in the form. But all in all, I think the public got this one generally correct. If we're just going for popularity, what's the most iconic watch for this price? This is probably right there. But this is why I like to leave it up to you guys to decide on like who wins out, who doesn't. It's a fun exercise and interesting data to always collect. If you guys enjoy these styles of videos and you want us to do more of them, let us know. We could advance to $9,000. In that price range, way less Speedmaster to consider there, so probably we'll have a new champion as well, and then we can move up to $10,000. Another thing we can do though is shift some things around where we could do a tournament looking at a specific brand to switch some things up and not even looking at price range, and that could be a fun exercise as well. If you wanna see that, leave some comments down below. What's the next tournament you want us to do? If you did enjoy it though, again, thumbs up. That's a great indicator for me that you enjoy these pieces of content. It's a lot to put together on the front end of these, to record all this data, set up all of these different structures of the tournament, and do all these individual matchups on social. So any indication that you guys like that is a great help for me, so I know that we can keep putting these out. Also, definitely check out TeddyBallerStore.com. TeddyBallerStore.com, authorized dealer of over 30 brands. Every purchase from TeddyBallerStore.com comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. So how we're able to make this all happen is through selling watches. That is our business model. So if you are in the market for a watch, we'd absolutely love to have your business. Lots of keep doing what we're doing here. We love what we do. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.